Day 655 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is a super quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at the Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 339,000 military personnel losses there, with an addition of 1,030 in the past 24 hours, so once again hitting that 1,000 mark for the day. Then as for hardware losses, 19 tanks, which is an astounding figure that can easily be taken for granted these days. Then 31 APVs and 6 artillery. And speaking of Russian tanks, here you can see a quick infographic on those losses as compared against other conflicts and time periods. Although, simply put, Russia's 24th of February invasion has the largest tank losses for any one nation since World War II. Simply astonishing stuff. Then we'll head back across to the map, start out in the Donbass today, as we sometimes do. In particular, we'll head to, near to Bakhmut, as just north and south of the settlement of Kremova, Russian forces made some advancements, capturing some area just on either side of the settlements there, really. Now, technically, it might be more accurate to say that they recaptured these spaces as opposed to captured, because they have held them in the past, then lost them and taken them back now. This has actually happened twice over already for this location, or both of these locations, in fact. Although this time around, Russia doesn't have the area encircled. It's almost hard to see sometimes. For example, just pretend that the green liberated area here below is red, because of course that is the positions that Russia used to hold in the region here in the past. Then we'll head on down south a bit today, where as for Avdiivka, so it's more of a story-driven affair right now as opposed to any map changes to speak of. For instance, a Russian soldier has recently posted some footage, as he stated he was in a company of 75, but now there's just 14 of them left, with the rest either being cargo 200 or 300. Oh, and these are just very common expressions these days, particularly in this war, or a bit of a euphemism, really. For example, cargo 200 means KIA, and cargo 300 means wounded in action. At least for the way that he's saying it, as technically it should officially reference the transportation of these types of losses, hence the word cargo. Although I'm sure that someone might comment below saying that Russia no longer transports their KIA or wounded in action, and that would generally be a pretty accurate statement to make. Then, plus the Russian soldier went on to say how the AFU was just destroying them. Although he did seem to mention that his survival instincts kept him alive, but I do wonder where those instincts were when he was leaving Russia to go invade Ukraine. Then we'll head a bit further down on the map to Novomykhailivka. So here we go, zoom right in for this one there. As Russian forces attempted another mechanized assault directly into the town. I really need to zoom in for this one and pop up the satellite imagery just to really make a point, because Russia's mechanized assault brigade, or group there really, came directly into the town via the main eastern access road, which is actually not even the main road, but rather just the only access road to get to this settlement. And arguably a very narrow one at that, because as you can see with all the surrounding natural obstacles, the rivers and such. So it was an obvious trap. And if I was a Russian commander, I wouldn't order this offensive willy-nilly, as the reality of the matter was that the Ukrainian forces had heavily mined that road, with the leftover remnants that you can see here being at least 4 Russian infantry fighting vehicles that attempted the assault. Wasn't a good day for them. Then we'll head all the way across to the Kherson Oblast today, and gotta go a bit further than that. Here we go. And taking it from the wider macro today, as there was some new recent Russian doom posting that we can already guess is what's really happening at this location anyway, as a Russian blogger is complaining that General Teplinsky is trying hard to improve the situation on the Dnipro River, but is facing, quote, lies on all levels of reports, which is really now expected from a military of the Russian caliber. And do remember, Teplinsky is the new Russian commander of the south here that was replacing another commander due to, well, the same basic reasons, so lies on all levels of reports. Those of which that created a rosy picture of events in the south. And I've said it a few times before, because it doesn't matter what side of the war you are on, because, simply put, maps don't lie. Although, having said that, I've seen my fair share of Russian positional maps in the past that made their situation look better than reality, but those fakeries couldn't hide the truth for very long at all, showing that Ukraine had made some gains, some changes in this instance, taking up positions, as we already know, along the southern bank as it exists just by the river. Then moving on, also somewhere in the east, the worthy of a mention, I would say. So this destroyed Russian grad BM-21 multiple rocket launcher was noticed in its post-operational state. Now, firstly, it's always good to see these being taken off the field, just because of the way that they blanket indiscriminately the fire into the Ukrainian locations. But secondly, destroyed grads don't normally look like this at all. So HIMARS or FPV drone attacks is not very likely to be the case for this one, as it actually appears to have been exploded from the inside out. At the location of the launcher itself, of course, which is where the blast marks are largely isolated to. So, horrible quality North Korean ammunition is what I would venture a guess as to what's happened with this one. Sometimes less is more. And that's a waste of equipment that Russia could have done without. Then we'll very briefly move across to the Russian map today, as we head to Voronezh, and the map coloring scheme, the satellite, is really throwing me off, so that's better, so here we go. So, in Voronezh of Russia, a high-ranking Russian helicopter pilot was hospitalized on Friday after someone fired 7 bullets at him while he was standing at a bus stop. So, a prominent Russian Telegram channel went on to say that he died just yesterday as a result of the injuries sustained from the attack. And he also mentioned that this pilot was training student pilots as well, which certainly raises an important point on how Russian jet pilots usually have many fewer flight hours under their belts than their NATO equivalents. Also, for the ones that do, many of them have been eliminated in this war, forcing Russia to call up retired 60-plus-year-old pilots to take their steed. And this was quite some time ago as well, so this was happening as of a year ago, roughly. And I do find it quite interesting how Russia takes a bit of a makeshift approach to keep things going in the face of pilot shortages, which is really something that you would never really see in the NATO environment. It's just a lot better coordinated in general. Then I'll head across to some news for today. So, Ukraine received the first units of the M120 rack systems, both the wheeled and tracked versions. So these fellas are self-propelled mortar systems on a 120 or 120mm caliber and manufactured in Poland. They're also highly mobile platforms and have excellent armor for crew protection, but also are equipped with a sophisticated fire control system enabling accurate targeting and rapid response to fire missions. And also on top of that, have a network-centric warfare capability system to integrate with other Ukrainian platforms. And are pretty much brand spanking new as well, just about a few years old, with them being first produced in 2017, 2018, around then. And so far, Ukraine is set to receive 54 of these from Poland. And then in some other news, so Ukrainian President Zelensky has arrived in Argentina for the inauguration of Argentina's president-elect, Javier Milei. He also met with various other South American leaders on the trip, But what was no doubt most notable during these events was that Zelensky briefly spoke with the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, during the inauguration ceremony of the newly elected president. And although the details of the conversation are not known, Zelensky did say that the conversation with Orban was as frank as possible during this sideline conversation between the two. Now, Orban, of course, is a contentious figure as it relates to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, who's maintained significant economic ties with Russia since the war began. He's also been critical of the EU's pro-Ukrainian stance in the aftermath of the Russian invasion and has blocked EU aid packages intended for Ukraine. He's also sometimes referred to as one of Putin's lapdogs. Go figure. Then in some other news, President Zelensky has a planned visit to the USA over the next 2 days, and it's expected that the visit will focus on bolstering defense, cooperation, and securing continued US support, and also that he'll be having meetings with President Biden and the US senators on December 12th, particularly with a focus on discussions centered around the urgent defense needs of Ukraine, all amidst stalled negotiations in Congress for aid to Ukraine. Then moving across to another Russian military mobilization blunder segment today. So this appears to be the latest prosthetic on offer for Russian invaders. Just a cheap, flimsy showpiece with no real functionality to speak of. So at one point the guy swings it up, showing the lifelessness of the flimsy arm toy. And unless he's actually holding it up, it just flops down. It really has no use. In fact, remember the Russian prosthetic recipient who had the selfie stick or cigarette holding stick for an arm? Because even that was more useful than this abomination. So clearly there was yet another Russian department funding problem involved in this mess up. I mean, seriously, even a World War I prosthetic would be more useful than this thing. Then moving across to a quick funny to round it all off for today, guys. So, in light of the upcoming Russian presidential elections for early next year, Putin appears to be on the narrative framing mode right now, as he goes on to state that economic sanctions are actually good for his country. Great, let's keep them going then. Everybody agrees. Meanwhile, he's also recently stated that the grass is not greener on the other side, as the archaic Western economies deteriorate. And this is a surprisingly, quite a normal line for the Kremlin to push. For instance, Russia is doing great and the collective West are living in horrible conditions. Like eating roasted squirrels in UK restaurants. I really can't stop bringing that one up. But back to King Poo. What a total masterclass this guy is. He knows how to spin it. And although the Russian elections are rigged, we know this very well, 100% chance of a Putin-looking future for Russia. But he does still have to play the game, so to speak, and put on a bit of a show, which inherently, or by default, basically forces him to say some of the most nonsensical things. As he and Russian state media, TV in general, have, due to this mistake of invading Ukraine, just really been forced to go down this nonsensical road of the most comedic of narratives. So that's got to be it for today, guys. A little bit shorter and less in depth than what I would normally want it to be. I will be back tomorrow or the next. But yeah, thanks again for your time, for watching. Really always do appreciate it. Please do continue to like and comment and subscribe once again, if not already. I always do appreciate that. It really helps boost out the channel and get the message out there, as always, that aggressive nations or autocracies or dictatorships are going to come up against the heat when they make, frankly, idiotic foreign policy decisions based on land expansion, ambitions, and greed that flies in the face of international rules-based order. So thanks again, and I hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!